Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanny shows at the movies.
I will smack you like a bad, bad donkey, okay?
I feel really uncomfortable right now.
That's how we begin every show, making Shaun uncomfortable.
Why are you smacking me like a donkey? That's just not very nice. I'm Shaun.
I'm Daniel.
And on today's show, we'll discuss 1999's Muppets From Space, the sixth film in the Muppet movie franchise. It was written by Jerry Jewell, Joseph Mazzarino, and Ken Kaufman, directed by Tim Hill, and starred the Muppet performers Dave Goelz, Steve Whitmire, Jerry Nelson, Bill Barretta, and the legendary Frank Oz, as well as Jeffrey Tambor and a host of celebrity cameos, including an Arquette.
Just one Arquette, or was there another uncredited one?
I don't believe Patricia's in here.
Okay, or Rosanna?
I don't believe that one's in here either. That it is just the Arquette who is easy to forget was in Scream, and it has pilloried.
That's about the only thing I know him from, actually.
He's made fun of as Dookie, I think, in the Scary Movie parodies, and it's just because he's gross and may or may not poo himself. So there you go.
Okay. That works.
Fun fact.
Well, his name in the Scream is like Dewey, right? Or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So before we get into the discussion of Muppets, a reminder to please share your comments, questions, or suggested topics with us at skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. We could discuss them right here on future shows. If you aren't already, join us live each Friday at 6:30 Central on Shaun's Alphabet Streams Twitch to be part of our interactive live streaming format, or join us anytime for interaction on our Discord. Finally, please join our Patreon and be part of our exclusive content. It only takes $1 a month, and let others know about how fabulous we all are.
Yeah.
Especially Shaun. Shaun is like extra fabulous.
Especially me. Yeah.
Mr. Fabulous.
All right. So before we get into this, we have to make sure that we know what this movie is about. And so Daniel has elected himself the summarizer of Muppets From Space. Daniel, what is the 1999 Muppets From Space movie about?
It's about Gonzo discovering he's a Muppet originally from space.
That is correct.
So Gonzo is depressed because he's feeling unique in the world, a weirdo, whatever, alone.
He is a whatever.
But he begins whatever. He begins receiving communications through his alphabet breakfast cereal that there might be others like him out there beyond Earth trying to make contact with him. At the same time, CovNet, a top-secret government organization that investigates potential threats of extraterrestrial invasion, has also been picking up these communications via their surveillance, and Edgar Singer, played by Jeffrey Tambor, who leads the agency, is eager to find the alien recipient of these messages on Earth. Singer and CovNet get an easy break when Gonzo decides to appear on Miss Piggy's TV news broadcast with a message to send over the airwaves to his potential kin that are somewhere out there. CovNet takes that opportunity to kidnap Gonzo along with Rizzo the rat, who is with Gonzo at the time. And so then it's up to a group of Muppets, Kermit, Fozzie, Pepe the King Prawn, Miss Piggy, and Animal, to stage a rescue from the government facilities before the government sucks out Gonzo's brain and uses Rizzo for some lab experiments. So successfully escaping the government facility with a bit of tech help from Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, meep, 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 the Muppets head to nearby Cape Doom, where the aliens, who turn out to actually indeed be others of Gonzo's species, make contact with humanity. And Muppet-anity. Singer's plot is foiled, and he ends up accepting a position to be an ambassador from Earth to Gonzo's people. Gonzo briefly considers going with his kind back out into space, or presumably to their home planet, but he ultimately decides to stay on Earth with his Muppet family.
The end.
The end.
Question, though, we have to deal with, which is COVNET is an acronym for something, and I do not believe the movie tells us what it is, and
it does not.
Don't know what it stands for.
I have no idea either.
And so I think
this movie doesn't really explain a lot of details.
No, it doesn't. So I am very curious.
You just kind of go with it.
If anybody in chat live with us or wants to send us a note via email, skiffyfanny@gmail.com, or the listener suggestion link, what they think COVNET stands for, COVNET, I will accept those. So please let us know, because I have no idea.
All that they say it is that it's cleverly disguised as a cement factory.
Yes, cleverly disguised as a cement factory. Yeah, it's a very interesting.
Yeah, according to the
statement.
Muppet Wiki, it is currently unknown what COVNET stands for.
So send us your thoughts, what you think it stands for. That is the goal. I want to know what people think it is there. There is a Muppet Wiki, Prince Justin. There's a wiki for everything. In chat, he's saying there's a Muppet Wiki ?
There is a wiki for everything, yes.
There is a wiki for everything. There's probably a wiki for this show somewhere.
Prince Justin, I am disappointed you haven't been to the Muppet Wiki before.
Turn in your geek card right now.
I mean, that should be like a weekly visit, at least.
Okay. So let's talk about this movie. So I think most people will know, if they know anything about the history of the Muppets, this is kind of at the end of the lagging period of the Muppets. This film really doesn't receive very much love by comparison to other films.
No. It's the last one of the original until they revived it in 2011.
Correct. Yeah, they did a Jason Segel film with Muppets in 2011. So really, the Muppets are in kind of a bad place with this film. Frank Oz even said that this movie maybe wasn't up to what it should have been, and it wasn't the movie that they wanted it to be. And so some of that may go down to some of the history of the writing. This had a couple different story lines. The idea that Gonzo was an alien, that was not actually intended in the original draft, according to Mazzarino. They were supposedly going to get signals actually from episodes of the Muppet show from 76 to 1981. And there was just more to the story than perhaps what we got. The storyline we actually get is basically Close Encounters of the Third Kind reduced down with an element of self-identity as a part of it.
Yes.
Which I
think
is
they play
interesting.
Homage to that a little bit.
Yeah. And there's certainly a lot of like
Steven Spielberg's film.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like references to science fiction movies, including Spielberg movies, Independence Day, certainly some Men in Black references, and a few other
Star Trek.
Yeah, and Star Trek, very overt references to Star Trek that gets shut off very quickly. There's even a Contact reference and so on. There's a lot of interesting writing bits, but certainly this is a film that wasn't as well received. In terms of reception, it's got presently a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is probably to some degree some historical revision in terms of reappropriating. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars out of 4, and he said, maybe Muppets from Space is just not very good and they'll make a comeback. I hope so, because I just don't seem to care much anymore. Which actually, that last sentence is maybe the most cruel thing he said there. So there's certainly more negative reviews that were there.
They were a bit burned out by this point.
Yeah, a bit. As
and trying to like catch up with the 90s in large respect.
Yeah,
because the heyday was the 70s and 80s. And then in the 90s, they weren't really predominant anymore, but they were trying to be hip and cool. They kind of developed new characters. but never really got into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, and it's probably worth noting that, by 1999, really it's not Jim Henson's Muppets anymore. It's not even Henson's Muppets by this point. Rainbow Warriors noting in chat, Jim died in 1990, so 9 years prior to that, and Gene had just died prior to this film. So there is an element of there is like a new era that should have been coming, and maybe they hadn't quite figured it out. There was already a decline, and then they made this. I don't think this movie is as bad, but it does lack some of the magic that something like Muppets. Gene Siskel had just died, is what Rainbow Warrior just means, which to explain Roger's review, which doesn't actually explain that to me. Did Siskel like the Muppets more?
Well, it's just Ebert. So you just had a review from Ebert as opposed to Siskel and Ebert.
Oh, got it. But in any case, point is, Jim
my understanding is this movie did begin, at least the core of it, as being one to explore Gonzo as being that weirdo, the loner of a little more into what exactly he was, and then also playing off of, I guess, in Muppet Christmas Carol, they kind of began enjoying the play between Gonzo and Rizzo, the rat, and thought they made a good team. And it's like, well, let's take that and make a story that focuses on them as characters.
And it does work. It is a very interesting framing at the beginning of this, with like the dream with the Noah's Ark at the beginning.
Yeah. With F. Mary Abraham.
Yeah.
You are doomed.
You're doomed. Yeah, because he's alone, right? And he keeps having these nightmares of being alone. And I like that the story fundamentally is about, Gonzo trying to figure out who he really is from an ancestry perspective, right? Because he's the only one that looks like him. There aren't any others, right? And everybody just says you're a whatever, and that's like a running joke from old Muppet time. And I think that's an interesting story, and certainly the story punctuates that by suggesting that, home is kind of where you make it, not necessarily what's given to you. And it's clear like this is a found family thing, that he has found family with all of the other Muppets. That's where his home is. He belongs here. And I like that. It's a very nice message. It's very Muppetsy messaging. It's very heartwarming and heartfelt. I think the biggest issue with this movie is just there are moments where it feels like they haven't quite figured out how the scenes are meant to work. There are moments of like, there should be a backing track here, or there should be something lively happening here, but a scene kind of drags a little bit, where something's happening, but it's not the most interesting part. The most interesting part has already happened, which is like them going through the house, right? And like there's all the Muppets doing all their thing. There's a musical number with She's a Brick House, like, all of those kinds of things.
It starts great with really a classic Muppets vibe to it.
Yeah, lots of like lofty music with the Noah scene. There's a lot of energy, and then it kind of dies down. And I think that's like what is missing there is that there's like something joyful that's missing that the Muppets do really well. Even when they set up a plot point, there's a tonality that I think is missing from when Gonzo is reading these messages. It's sort of treated kind of straight. And I think that's the thing I would say is the mistake. There needs to be, I think, a little bit more play going on. And
what I think is lacking is, and to some regard, it's probably due to the absence of Jim Henson, the music.
Yes,
you start off with a great musical number, but then you don't really have much else throughout it. Like there's popular music that's employed. There's a big, music and dance number at the end.
The background's quiet. It's lifeless sometimes.
The background is quiet. And like if I think back to the Muppet movie, the original, all the movies of quiet introspection and seriousness, they're either broken up by some kind of absurd humor moment, or when you really need to make that sort of emotional, deep moment, it's cast in Rainbow Connection. You write it in song. and that's the real emotional kind of moment, and the quiet.
Yeah.
And this never does that right, because I think they miss out on using music to convey that.
I think like they just needed more time. Like the story's fine. I think it's a kind of, it's great to do basically Muppets doing Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Like, that's essentially the story we're getting. I think that's perfectly fine. I think it'd be even funnier if they could somehow convince Richard Dreyfuss to show up, although I suspect he's a little too
that would have been
pretentious for
good.
this. But it would have been fun, like especially if he's holding the Gonzo potatoes at one point. That would have been pretty funny.
Yeah,
but
that they gave to another character.
Yeah, they gave to another character instead. But I think like there's an element of this needed more time to gel. They needed more than just the like funk music bits, which I think are fine and fun. They needed probably a couple of original songs, which they originally had written or were attempting to write for this, and that effectively just got out. So they had a song that they did write called "Eye to the Sky." That was in an early draft, but it's not included in the soundtrack. And yet, I kind of would like that. There was also a different rendition. I'm going to go back there someday in this from the Muppet movie,
perfect.
Which would have been nice too, because that's a nice callback. But it's not here,
and it inspired, because I think that song is partially what inspired also them to explore Gonzo a little more.
And that it would be great if what they had done and had said, well, we were very successful with these other films, Muppet Treasure Island, the Christmas Carol.
One successful? I thought Treasure Island was kind of a failure as well.
It's got Tim Curry in it, so I don't care what you think. I just want to be clear.
I actually have. So that's one I haven't. That's the only feature Muppet movie I haven't seen still. Is Muppet Treasure Island. I refused to watch it when it came out because I was a purist and only wanted the original Muppet stuff.
Now I'm freaking
curious.
And
then, so I still haven't watched. I would love Tim Curry regardless, but otherwise I don't really know much about it, and I thought that it had been not that well received.
Okay, so Muppet Christmas Carol is 1992, right? We've done that one for this show, right? That one was, it cost them $12 million. They made 27.2 approximately. There may be more hiding in there, and they certainly made a lot on sales later on, right? Treasure Island got 47.2 on a budget that is not written here for me to find. I don't know. I have no idea how much. Okay. Now we got to find out. Muppet Treasure Island budget.
Well, what is it on like
$5 million? So it made actually more money than Muppet Christmas Carol. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This one did not. Muppets from Space definitely didn't, and some of that is not really.
Yeah, Muppet Treasure Island has a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Audience score of 77. Okay, so yeah, it did do better.
Yeah, and certainly as you go further back, it's probably worth pointing out that the margins of success are different. So they were much more successful when they did the Muppets film in 2011, which cost them $45 million to make. I don't know why it cost you that much money to make, but sure. And made $165. So considerably more successful. This film actually bombed. Not bombed horribly, but basically had a $24 million budget, made 22.3, approximately. Probably made enough money back over time, maybe from other kinds of sales, or at least the company itself and all the Muppets figures maybe made it up. And in terms of sales of toys and all those kinds of things, because Muppet toys do sell, right? And certainly, like when you look at Treasure Island or you look at Muppets Take Manhattan, which cost $8 million and then made 25.5. Like it's not like these films were making, amazing box office budgets.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's also kids that are going to see them. So
yeah,
or families. Yeah.
So there's, but really, like by the time you get to the 1990s, I think the bigger thing is just the Muppets are in decline. They don't have the same cultural influence they had the decades prior. And that's really part of it is competition. There's just a lot more children's programming. In the 1990s, we get things like the Pixar films, which are enormously successful. and other films for kids that are pretty successful. So just struggle.
And I mean, even that interval between like 96 and 99, you had a lot of people that grew up with the Muppets that now had really definitively aged out.
Right.
Where it would not be cool to go watch a Muppets movie per se.
And I think, just something about the way this one is just constructed. It has interesting things to say, but it very much feels like it's something made for television rather quickly, rather than something made for the big screen.
The big screen, in a way, the effects are nothing special, yeah.
Yeah, and you could kind of see, like, they had some of the Muppets Christmas Carol charm at moments, right? That opening dance funk sequence has a lot of that opening charm that you get in the very beginning of Muppets Christmas Story. And certainly other moments do too, like even at the ending, right? When the aliens come and they put on basically a
Celebrate
funk concert.
Good Times.
Yeah, celebrate good times, come on. Yeah, right. Even that, there's a lot of charm in that. And then there's just a lot of other moments that don't feel that. Also, I would just say it's a little weird to me, the Muppets, like, a little violent in this one, in a not cartoony, like they're gonna suck his brain out of his head.
Well, that's not, I mean, if you think about the Muppet movie, Mel Brooks was going to do similar things to Kermit.
Yeah, but Kermit's
he was like a Nazi scientist, like torturing Kermit.
That's so
in the original Muppet movie. So it's not that. And like Miss Piggy gets like 2, action sequences in this one of beating the crap out of it, which
so hold on.
is one more than normal, I guess, which I was surprised that there were 2 of this.
Let's be real. That first action sequence with her, awesome.
Yes.
It's so fun. I kind of want
Was that the one when she's like, when he's like, I have a black belt 3rd degree, and she's like, I have a platinum belt with no limit.
No credit limit.
With no credit limit, yeah.
That's a joke for the adults in the room.
Yes. Well, that's the charm works throughout this movie and the jokes, I think, because there are jokes that land pretty effectively consistently, either pitched towards children or the young heart or towards adults. And I think by and large, the jokes work really well in this.
I think the jokes mostly do really work well. I think it's the most fun probably when it plays with the references it's borrowing from. It's 1999, so...
As long as they're not dated, yeah.
As long as they're not dated. I think...
Like the Dawson's Creek ones.
Oh, I didn't catch the Dawson's Creek ones because I never watched that show.
Either did I, so I still don't get them. I just know Katie Holmes and that guy were in Dawson's Creek and they mentioned Dawson. That's all I know.
Oh, okay. Do they sing the song, I don't want to wait for our lives to be over? No. But like, it would be kind of fun. I mean, it's 1999, so maybe a little bit too early to be figuring out the Matrix, but there's a Matrix joke to be made in 1999. It's a little too early, I think, for them to have made that joke. And I think like running with some of those jokes, I think would be, rather than just having them be almost like cameo moments, might make that work a little more effectively. And then I think playing up the emotional component would also be really useful here.
Oh, yeah.
For too much of it, I think that Gonzo is treated as, his whole alien thing is just a joke. And the whole bit about him trying to figure out who he is sort of punted to the side. And I think there's...
It historically always has been that. So they're playing to that more and kind of dancing around.
But it's his movie.
Delving into it here.
Yeah, it's his movie, though.
Yes, yeah. They should go into it a little more. And they also kind of dance around. They seem to want to use it as an allegory, which is one of the things I found interesting in the film.
Go on, yeah.
I've only seen the movie once before, and I don't remember much from it. But I don't recall having this thought when I watched it before. But there's a few lines, I don't remember the exact lines, that almost seem to be using Gonzo's state of being a whatever and equating it towards individuals who identify differently, whether that be in terms of gender or sexual preferences. And he even has a comment at one point. He's like, I realized that this wasn't a choice in my life. I was just born this way, effectively.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of like dancing around that and in typical 90s, even late 90s fashion, not really getting into it.
Yeah.
And similarly, there's a really nice scene where it might even be the same scene where Kermit's response, and I thought this was one of the best moments of the film, very true to like Jim Henson's portrayal of Kermit and the Muppets always, where Kermit basically says, it doesn't matter what they think or what they feel. Gonzo is important to them and his feelings matter. And what he considers, when nobody else believes him about the aliens, I think that's what it was in reference to. Kermit speaks about how it doesn't matter whether they've experienced the aliens or not, or seen messages in their breakfast cereal. They love Gonzo, and they're going to support him, even if they don't see evidence of this stuff, because of the importance of him in their lives. They're going to support him and help him in his goals and what he's trying to do. And I thought that was a really good moment.
Yeah, I think there is a moment where Gonzo, not in this movie, but in something else, I think goes by a men and women's bathroom to like a whatever bathroom. And so some people, I guess, have interpreted that to say that Gonzo is non-binary. I would say that perhaps Gonzo just defies description because he also is in love with a chicken. So, so there you go.
I was disappointed we didn't have more Camilla.
Camilla's not in here very much. Just some brief moment. Although there's a bunch of chickens being given like almost like a funker size, like jazzer size, but funker size, like dance, like like workout routine basically, which is cool.
And my wife noticed she is on his tie as well.
Oh, that's right.
At the end of the movie. But anyway,
I think he wears the same tie in all of the media interviews they did for this movie.
Yes.
And I watched a bunch of those, and I just gotta say, it is stupidly delightful that like a bunch of junket like journalists are going into these meetings being like, I'm interviewing Kermit the Frog, and we're just gonna that's it. Like you just have to ask the questions and roll with the punches because whatever happens. Which I just really love. And then you had one like I saw where it was like a 9-year-old girl was interviewing 3 of the Muppets, Gonzo, Peggy, and Kermit, and I'm just like, this is too adorable. It's too adorable. Anyway, I'm sorry, but you should go watch those. They're up on YouTube, and it's just a lot of fun. And yeah, Rainbow Warrior is saying in chat, Carol Burnett said, when you talk to Muppets, it is real. They are real creatures. And I actually saw an interview with Frank Oz from, I'm guessing the 80s. It was quite a while ago. Some talk show, I don't remember, where he had Cookie Monster, and he was like interacting. And he was trying to point out that like people, that everybody else doesn't have a problem, even as adults, just like losing themselves once the puppet goes, right? Losing themselves in it. And he like just immediately was like, like, and the guy gave Cookie Monster a cookie. And when I didn't even think about it, I just did it. And Kaz is like, yeah, like the point is like you forget that the man is there, and he's saying it's as Cookie Monster. And they're all watching Cookie Monster and not, even though you can see him. Like Frank Oz's mouth is moving. He's not doing ventriloquism. It's just the puppet is so animated and alive. And then I love the part in this interview where they're like, okay, can I just talk to Frank Oz for a minute? And Cookie Monster says, okay, I'll go take a nap. And then he like flops it and then he puts his own arm over it so they can talk. It's hysterical and really funny and very cute. And I think every human that works in these films, most of them have said like some version of what Rainbow Warrior is pointing out, which is like, you kind of forget that you're not acting with, like it's not real. The thing is not, you kind of forget it. Like even Michael Caine in Christmas Carol, Muppet Christmas Carol, like took it very seriously. And I think at times you can just tell he is not fully aware that there's like a person underneath this thing. Yeah.
I've always, watching the movies, I've always kind of felt whenever the actual humans show up in the cameo roles, Like, they're the weird puppet-like ones. They're almost the ones that I'm like, wait, why are you here? Or even when the Muppets are interacting with them, the Muppets all in their world seems more real to me than the humans that are in there.
Yeah, it's actually astonishing. Because, yeah, you know, like, they did a really good job with that fight scene you mentioned, right? With Miss Piggy, where she's fighting, oh, God, what is his name? Is it,
I kind of recognize his face.
It's Joshua Charles, who is, I think, best known for Sports Night, if I'm correct. Or, and I guess also The Good Wife. I just looked really quick. It's also The Good Wife. Anyway, like, she fights him, and I think, like, we can't really see Miss Piggy's legs for pretty much any of it, right? Occasionally they will show Miss Piggy in full profile, but mostly they don't. And it is so interesting. They do the same thing for him. They don't show him in full either. And that scene, I think, works so well because they're both so animated, and he still feels like he's the one that's weird little bit because he's a man. I think they do that scene very well, very effectively. Even Ray Liotta in his cameo.
Yes, Ray Liotta does a great job.
But anyway, yeah. I do think they do a good job of like the performances of the Muppets themselves. But I mean, like, honestly, would we have expected anything else? I mean, it would almost be like, the only way this could be the worst film on the planet is if the Muppets stop feeling like the Muppets. At that point, like, you would just have to say this feels wrong. It feels like heresy or a violation.
Mm-hmm.
But this film doesn't have that. It has pacing problems and direction problems, but not the Muppets feel like Muppets.
It would feel like the Muppets in the original season of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
where they no longer really seem like Muppets. They don't have that power or pull of seeming real.
Yeah, I think that's so
like
important.
Real individuals or real people. Yeah.
Yeah. This is, I think, why some of the funniest Muppets bits from like the old show, you know, even when they're ad-libbing, right? Part of the joy of it is, right, they're so good at making them feel alive, even when they're interacting with humans. Like, I know, like, Lady Gaga did some special
being
years
their personalities.
Yeah. And I think if you watch the Lady Gaga show, like, it's not very good, but it has moments where it's just like Lady Gaga and a Muppet hanging out together, and it's very funny because, like, Lady Gaga's trying to, like, act, you know, like normal, like, oh, and then a Muppet does something hilarious, and it's sort of like, I can't help but laugh because this joke is so funny. And I think that improv that Muppets do very well, maybe some more of that here would be really good too, is like little moments where there's a little more of that improv.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It'd be kind of nice.
Yeah, I don't recall any moments that really felt improv is I can't say the whole word. Improv. Whoa, I can't say it either. Improvisational? Improvisational?
What? I feel like
I don't know
both
why
just
I
had
can't
a stroke.
Get all those syllables out, but
improvisational.
But yeah, it didn't really like the original, the older ones. Had moments like that where you could tell both the cameo actors, and the Muppet performers were doing that element of improv. And it may be that most of those cameo actors in those early ones were also like improv-based comedians by and large, whereas most of the people that were cameoing in this aren't comedians per se.
Improvisational.
Right?
Improvisational.
I still can't say that.
Paul has put it in chat. I'm sorry. The whole time you were talking, my brain was stuck on this word. But
like David Arquette, not really comedian. Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
He's not very good in this. That one,
right?
They could have cut
Katie
that out.
Holmes, Ray Liotta. Like, Ray Liotta's the funniest of all of them, I think, but he's not a comedian. But none of them, I don't think, really have that improv kind of.
Yeah, but Ray Liotta's funny because he is known for being such a serious role, like gangster type characters, very fierce. And so the idea of him playing against his type is the joke. And he doesn't have to play that as a comedian. He just has to play that against his own type.
Right. With sincerity. Yeah.
With sincerity. So I think like that's the difference, right? That this film does it pretty well at times, and then maybe sometimes a little less effectively. As long as they get the people who are meant to be playing their roles to kind of play against their type, or get them to play something where they can be sincerely in that spot, and give them enough scene with a Muppet where they can, it kind of works. I think the Ray Liotta part, for example, works pretty well because there's enough time of him interacting with Miss Piggy that we buy the interaction. But some of the other cameos don't, right? Like they just kind of happen, and it feels like it is a cameo.
Right.
Which in others, like Muppet Christmas Carol, right, the human actors are pretty well integrated into the production. It's Michael Caine, right? Like he's the main character essentially. And even other films like Tim Curry is like one of the main villains in that, and he's chewing scenery in the Treasure Island one. So this, like Jeffrey Tambor, I think.
Yeah. So Sean, what do you think about Jeffrey Tambor in this?
I mean, other than the controversy about the actor, that we now have.
I mean, that aside.
I think he's fine. I think the problem is that Tambor, it's either they didn't give him enough to work with that made him more comical.
Yeah.
And the things that he has these hang-ups. Like, he does not like being laughed at, but for too much of the film, that doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like, it comes up a handful of times.
They're kind of like trying to make him seem like Gonzo, in someone who is, ostracized or an outcast, and has gone through life reacting to that in a different way than Gonzo has, and has never really found others of his kind. Yeah. But, his whole thing is that, like, people are laughing at him because he believes in aliens and believes that we're going to be, invaded by aliens potentially. And that's about it. It's not really explored much.
It isn't.
Yeah, I agree. He doesn't have much to go with in this.
And it means like his almost redemption at the end just kind of falls flat. It doesn't mean a lot. Like, even the bits where he's giving the lofty speeches, like, the only time he does that is at the end of the movie, where he's given like a Star Trek speech, and then he's giving like his own version of Neil Armstrong landing on the moon, and
which is pretty terrible, and the doors close on him before he can finish it.
Right. Yeah. And it just feels
so it's almost like they're still mocking him.
Kind of. The movie is at that point,
right? Yeah.
And it's like, but isn't the bit that they find him so entertaining, they find him so interesting, that Gonzo aliens, that because he's like wanting to blow them up and like all this stuff, and they think it's a riot. They think it's hilarious. And he sort of realizes,
he's like a court jester fool.
Right. And then he kind of realizes, I could go to space and do all of this stuff. And then it kind of just like ignores the fact that earlier in the movie, they like describe him as like a psychopath who just wants to murder. Like, it's a character that doesn't feel like they figured it out yet. And I don't know. I kind of feel like they just needed to this whole movie, they just needed more time gelling all of the narrative components to figure out what the core of this movie is. Is it a movie about somebody who is a bad person and wants to do bad things, who finds redemption, and also a movie about Gonzo, who figures out who he is, and who he is turns out who he was all along? He's a whatever who is distinct and is loved greatly by his friends. Or is it this something else? What is this movie wanting to really be? My mom's asking in chat because she showed up late. She wants to know if he had his chickens. They were present. Camilla is present. They maybe not significant characters here. No, it would have been nice if maybe the chickens were helping him with this whole alien thing. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but the villain in particular was like severely underdeveloped. And if anything, I mean, he wasn't given much in terms of lines or comedy to work with, but he was upstaged by like a fucking bear. I don't remember the bear's name. Do you remember?
The bear's name is wait, oh god,
Riley the bear or something.
No,
but like the bear is like given much more of a character arc and much more of a developed personality.
Oh my god, the name is
than
escaping
Jeffrey
me.
Tambor's character is.
Yeah. Oh, it's Bobo the Bear in chat, and he is Rentro in the movie.
Rentro, okay.
Yeah, he is described as the wiki as an Ursine agent, which I find very funny as a phrase because it is accurate, but it also sounds like some sort of government title at the same time. Anyway, I'm sorry. So please continue.
Well, he's a much more interesting villain character, right? I mean, he's a villain lackey, but he's given an arc. He's given a redemption, an actual redemption, as opposed to everyone just mocking him and we're going to bring you along because we like to laugh at you, when the whole thing all along was don't laugh at me. So nothing ever really works right with the singer character. But the bear character is much more engaging, much more interesting, has comedic lines, has, the actual conflicts going on, do I go with the bad guys or do I go with the good guys, etc. So the bear was so much more interesting.
He's a very fun character.
I thought it would have worked better if the bear had just been the main villain.
That would have been much more interesting, I think.
Yeah.
And have Jeffrey Tambor be the lackey.
The lackey.
I think
that would have been good.
Tambor is a good comedic actor. I've seen him in many things. He is very funny. But I do find that Tambor is more funny when he is not actually the character in charge, right? Where he thinks he is, but he's not. He's more funny. Thinking of him in Arrested Development, for example, right? He's hilarious in Arrested Development, but it's a character who's brought low right from the start. And then when he finally gets out again, he's trying to regain all of that and realizing he really can't.
He has absolutely no control.
He has no control. I think that's more interesting. So having him as a lackey, where he's beholden to this bear person who is just constantly eating peanut butter honey sandwiches or whatever he eats, and kind of bumbling and not very good at his job, and the lackey's trying to keep things going, because the bear's getting yelled at by General Luft and all of these things. I think that'd be more funny.
Yeah.
Well, Rainbow Warrior is asking, are Muppets allowed to be villains? And no.
Well,
not really.
As long as they have redemption eventually. Because in this, you have the scientist that's going to suck out Gonzo's brain.
Oh, yeah.
He's a villain. But then he ends up, making friends with the rats and...
Yeah, no, there are Muppet characters. And
similarly, in the past, there have been ones who have worked against the Muppets, but then
end up
sided with them by the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and certainly there are my mom's saying not true Muppets, but I think my mom might be referring to things made by the Jim Henson Company for other products that are not. So the Skeks, for example, from Dark Crystal, for example, the Skeksis from there, are all obviously technically Muppets and technically not at the same time. I consider them Muppets. They're just from another dimension. Shut up. I'm right. So there is that, but generally they're not really villains. I think you're right though. When they get to be villains, they have to have redemption, or they need to be villains, but not really villains. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but I don't know. This is kind of what we're getting at. Oh, it's Spider Lily. Good evening. It's Tanya LeBird. Welcome to the chat. Thank you very much for showing up, Spider Lily. You get 43,000 points for being here. I don't know how to actually do that for you right now, so Paul will probably do it for you. You're welcome. So yeah, Spider Lily hasn't been here in a hot minute.
Paul the point, man.
You got to give the name Paul in chat. Anyway, Paul will figure it out. So in any case, we were talking about the villain, I guess, and I think we're
Muppet villains.
Yeah, we're in agreement though. There was a Kermit doppelganger in the preceding film. Rainbow Warrior in chat says.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's a little interesting, I guess, in that respect. So the villain,
Sam the Eagle is somewhat villain-esque at times.
It's not that he's a villain. He's just stern.
Yeah, but he's a villain in the sense he's stopping them from having fun.
Well, yeah, okay. In the like loose sense of how a child might perceive a villain.
I guess more antagonist, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say that it's a true villain. But regardless.
Oh, the Fraggles.
The Fraggles? Yeah, the Fraggles are part of the Muppet universe.
No, not the Fraggles, the Frackles.
Are they the evil Fraggles?
A group of Muppet monsters who first appeared in The Great Santa Claus Switch as the henchmen of Cosmo Scam, the villain who tried to replace Santa Claus.
That's alarming.
Yeah. And no, and I clicked on it because I thought maybe we were like the villains of the Fraggles, but no.
Fun fact, did you know that Wendy's, Travelodge, and Sbarro all advertised some aspect of this film? Just thought you should know. Because apparently there were promotional tie-ins with Wendy's and Travelodge while the film was being marketed. And then the home video release, Sbarro actually released a 6-figurine set of Muppet things, along with Muppet pizza boxes and bags. So if you went to Sbarro in your local mall, you would have got some Muppet stuff. There you go. It was a different time, Daniel, back in the 1990s.
They were good days, right?
Yeah. Paul says, Sbarro, where you go when you want to hate pizza. I mean, I don't go to Sbarro because I think the pizza's that great. But then again, I'm not from New York like Paul in chat. Well, specifically Paul's from Staten Island, which is not really New York. But
So you're saying you've just never actually had real pizza, Sean?
I've never had New York pizza. No.
So
I've never been to New York City.
Pizza.
Yeah. I've never been to New York City. So
had an earthquake today.
I heard there was an earthquake. Hopefully everybody is safe. So, and if not, get safe or else.
Yeah, I had even some rumblies here in Pennsylvania, I found.
That's alarming. So, well, okay. So we're getting kind of long. And so what are some,
we should finish up.
Yeah. Any other things that you want to kind of mention here?
What was your favorite movie? Or your favorite moment from the movie?
Favorite moment? Ooh, that's a good one. Honestly, it's the funk dance scene at the beginning.
Okay.
It's exactly what you think of Muppets. It's literally a character trying to go take a shower while everybody is up showering in every which way possible. There's the shrimp guy, right? He is
Pepe,
the king, right? Prawn. The king prawn, right? He's in the sink.
He's
right?
not a shrimp.
The penguins are all in one of the bathtubs.
The penguins are all in the tubs, yeah.
Fozzie is in his raincoat taking a shower and then screams like he's naked, even though he's not. You have all these characters taking a shower while this other character's wandering around trying to find a place to take a shower. It's Animal, by the way. Right? It's all very fun and playful, and then it becomes like
and then Animal uses the toilet.
Yeah, he just uses the toilet, which is very Animal. I just find that overall was the most perfect scene of the movie. It was the most Muppety scene, and I loved it. And I wanted this film to have more of that overall. What about you?
That actually was mine. The aforementioned scene with Kermit that I mentioned in the van.
Oh,
in
okay.
The what are they called? The Mayhem? The band. Why am I blanking on the name of the band?
Animals Band.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Teeth and
the Electric Mayhem.
Mayhem, yeah. The Electric Mayhem van. The moment where they're having the serious discussion, the sort of corollary to that, a top moment of the movie, was when Kermit gives the speech of, "We're Muppets, we don't leave our friends behind." And then someone's like, "We just left Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker at the rest stop." And so Kermit responds by looking around and going, "From this moment on, we never leave a friend behind." Love that moment. But my wife, her favorite moment that she mentioned was when they're playing poker and Rizzo has the 4 aces, and so he bets his aged cheese.
Yeah.
And puts that into the pot. And then Pepe the Prawn ends up winning because Rizzo's cards get lit on fire by Gonzo.
He wins with a pair of deuces.
Yes, and so he had the pair of deuces, and Pepe sang the song then about, what is that poker song? You got to know when to fold them.
Oh,
got to know when to hold them.
Pepe does have a lot of good moments in this, I will say.
Yeah.
He's very fun to watch.
I was, back when I was a kid, I mean, I wasn't really a kid by the point this came out, but I was somewhat antagonistic to Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, and Muppets from Space because they weren't the original sort of trilogy of movies to me from my childhood that I had nostalgia for. And part of that was I had resistance to them bringing on focus to other characters. Like, I wanted to see more of those characters from those original movies. And I remember at the time, I really was angry that they gave so much time to Rizzo, and particularly to now this Pepe the Prawn, who I just found annoying back then. But I was like in high school, college by that point.
Oh, okay.
So now with a lot more years, I can look back on it and actually enjoy the character much more. But I remember that being a part of the reason why I didn't like this movie is the shift of trying to find new Muppet characters to connect with audiences.
Oh, interesting. Huh. I never had that
I did not
experience.
appreciate at the time, but definitely do now.
Okay, interesting. Okay. If you, Rainbow Warrior has a question in chat that I'll ask that first before we do close out things. Have you seen the Electric Mayhem series? I have not. Have you?
No, I have not.
Let me pull it up. There's an Electric Mayhem series. Oh, I'm Googling it right now. Hold on. I'm assuming it's called The Muppets Mayhem, is what you mean. Not the Electric Mayhem. It's American musical comedy television series featuring the Muppet musical group Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. The premise, junior A&R executive Nora, played by Lily Singh, must deal with the madness caused by Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, who come face to face with the modern musical business as they try to record their first ever album with which to go platinum. It stars Lily Singh as Nora Singh. Let's see, Leslie Carrara Rudolph as Penny Waxman. There is obviously all the Muppets are in this. Sarah Chaudhry is Hannah Singh. There's other characters. It looks like not giant names, and that's okay. Rachel Bloom makes a cameo. There's James Hong. James Hong? Is that name? Oh, James Hong! James Hong makes a cameo. Oh, I'm already happy about that. Ben Schwartz is in it. There's a couple other fun folks. So there you go. So it's on Disney Plus. You can watch it if you'd like. Or not. Up to you. Well, anyway, Daniel, if you had to grade this movie, what would you grade this movie?
I didn't know we graded at the movies.
We do. We stopped doing it because... But I'm going to make you do it because I know that you're judgmental because you write book reviews.
Because I'm a professor.
Yeah.
I would probably give this a B-.
B-? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. In chat, already we got Rainbow Warrior who said B+. If anyone else would like to rate this movie, please do so in chat. You can also email us.
Or if there are any other questions from chat.
Or other questions
before we close out.
Yeah. For me, I'd probably also put it like a B- somewhere in there. I think for a lot of the reasons we've already kind of described. It has a lot of fun parts to it. It isn't to me like Muppet Christmas Carol, which I think is the best Christmas Carol movie ever made. It's just, oh man, I love that movie. It's, my mom is in chat. My mom will know this. But we had I see Podchaser. I'm saying my thing about my mom. Let me talk about my mom. So we had it on VHS, and you know what VHS tapes were like back in the day, Daniel, because you're old enough to remember VHS tapes. But it came in,
VHS
that
tapes.
That like kind of big plastic.
Ooh, the poofy one.
Kinda, yeah, like almost like the Disney box plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we used to watch that quite a lot, the Muppet Christmas Carol. It was a really good one to watch. So
if any of you out there have not seen A Muppet Family Christmas, I also highly recommend that. It was never released to any kind of home video that I'm aware of. I don't have Disney to know whether it's available on that, but I think we watched it on like YouTube or something. But was really enjoyable and good. It involves Fozzie Bear surprising his mother on Christmas Eve, bringing some of the Muppets to her farm to celebrate Christmas, and like slowly like more and more Muppets show up. And it ends up bringing together all the Muppets from The Muppets, as well as all the Muppets from Sesame Street, plus all the Muppets from Fraggle Rock, all into the house, effectively, into the small little house.
That is
so
adorable.
A lot of it reminded, it's basically that opening bits of Muppets from Space in a Christmas theme for the whole entire movie. And so it's a really good special. And it also, I was reminded of it because it has a good series of song numbers with the Electric Mayhem in it as well.
That's fantastic. So there's a question in chat, which is, what is your single favorite scene from any Muppets movie? And that comes from Paul. Daniel, what do you think before we close out here?
Give me a second to think.
I know mine. I'll just say mine.
Yeah, do yours.
The entire opening of Christmas Carol. That opening sequence with the songs and all the people dancing and all of it. That whole bit, I love it to death. It's one of my favorite scenes of any Muppets, anything. Otherwise, it's Pigs in Space. The whole thing. Because you give me Star Wars and Miss Piggy, I'm in.
When I was really young, I remember absolutely adoring Sweetums, the really big Muppets character in the Muppet movie when he's chasing after the car when he decides that he actually does want to join the Muppets and he has his bags. And I love the callback throughout the movie of him continuously like trying to catch up to them, chasing after them. And also the climax to that movie where you have the giant animal that faces off against Doc Hopper. I absolutely adored that.
That's adorable. Prince Justin has been kind enough to gift sub to Rainbow Warrior 71, who may at this point need to refresh his feed. Although we're about to close out, so that may be somewhat irrelevant now. But next time you come...
Oh, there still could be ads.
Yeah, Rainbow Warrior will be able to see without ads because I put ads back on. And because I want to be rich and a millionaire. And so, there you go. Paul is helping me by bankrupting himself. Thank you, Paul. Okay, Daniel. Well, I think we gotta close out the show, yeah?
Yeah, we got a show.
We did it.
Thank you very much.
Whoop, whoop. All right, for folks...
and people can blame me for adding this movie to the possibility for at the movies. I forgot to mention that earlier. And ultimately, though, the blame goes to Prince Justin, because he is the one who actually picked this for us to watch.
And then chose not to be here, you bastard.
Yes, exactly. He had no idea he was doing that when he did the picking, but
fair.
Nonetheless, he did pick it.
Well, for folks at home or live with us right now, if you'd like to let us know what you thought, please go to skiffingfanty.com/listener suggestions or skiffingfanty@gmail.com if you would like to, let us know what you think about the movie. Or you want to put a comment out. We'd love to hear it. We have a newsletter at skiffingfanty.com/newsletter, and we're on pretty much every social media platform as @SkiffyandFanty. Easy enough to find. We have a link tree, linktr.ee/skiffingfanty, where you can find all of that. Patreon.com/skiffingfanty is where you will find how to support the show. $1 gets you access to our Discord. We do lots of fun stuff there, and I would love to do more fun stuff with people, including very soon doing our Torture Cinema live watch, which everyone can come to on Monday. The whatever day that is. It's like the last Monday of the month, I think.
Do we have a film for that yet decided?
No, it's cold. The theme is Cold War films. That's it. But the winner will be decided on Monday after this recording is done. So it may already be done by the time people get it. So please do that. And then we also need people to review us on, iTunes, Castbox, Good Pods, Podchaser, basically everywhere, and tell folks about the show. it's hard to find people if you don't have a money to pay for a producer and a marketing budget. And we have neither of those.
We need an army of minions.
So we need minions. Delicious, crunchy minions. That are good with ketchup. Yeah. Daniel's getting hungry right now. So there's that. Also, I will just say very casually, before I shut my mouth in a hot minute, if you are a fan of the show and you're a writer, creative, fan, dork, weirdo that is at least weird in a way that is, appropriate for most audiences, we're always happy to bring on guests of the show for the show. We do all kinds of stuff. If you'd like to pitch something to us that you think you'd like to be on, then please do. We do book stuff. We do movie stuff. We do torture cinema stuff. That one's for funny people, so you have to be funny. Or you have to be the one straight person on that. So I can't have you and Daniel there because that's not going to work. Or you and Paul, because Paul is also a straight man. So not sexuality straight. We're talking comedy wise straight. Calm down, people. But anyway, there's that. So please let us know. We'd love to bring folks on. We're also very happy for suggestions for diverse media. So there's a lot of stuff out there that is worth watching or reading that is by a variety of people around the globe. We want to try to highlight as much of that as we can. So there we go. So there's that. I'm at SeanDuke.net. My link tree is linktree /Sean Duke. And I have a Patreon at The Joy Factory, and I'm here on Alphabet Streams on Twitch. I stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, usually at 7 p.m. Central, and then Skiffy every Friday at 6:30 p.m. Central. And that is enough of my mouth moving. Daniel, your mouth moves now.
You can find me at Reading 1000 Lives on Blue Sky. That's 1000 as in 1000. And my reviews on the Skiffy and Fancy blog, reading1000lives.com, again the number 1000, and elsewhere.
Perfect. I'm not going to make it awkward, because this is the Muppets, and that's awkward enough.
May the microbes be with you.
Ew. They are with me, because they're inside me, Daniel, right now. They're inside
with you in your soul.
I don't believe in a soul, but sure. Do you think if there was a soul, the bacteria would be involved in that too?
Yes. They're involved in everything. They're even involved in the Force. So they'd be with you like the Force is with you, right?
Are you saying that midi-chlorians are bacteria?
Yes, of course they are. That was the whole point of them, of course.
Paul in chat, I'm going to get Force powers. Daniel's going to help me. I can't wait.
Next week. Actually, next Friday.
Oh,
is
that's
when
right.
I give you the power of the microbes.
You shall teach me, your young Padawan. All right. And on that note, awkward ending and see.